Stand up, guys.
Hello everyone.
Apti Plus Academy, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. So much. Thank you.
Just a small thing for us.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Token of peace, sir, from us.
We always keep blessing you.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope so. Good evening. क्या नींद आ रहा है क्या like घूम पाच्छे होते पारे क्या कि you might be having some classes and then भाटा खेचो and then you might be feeling very sleepy. So no, it's all right. So first of all, very thank you to the Apti Plus team, especially Alvina, for having me over. And it feels really brilliant that finally I'm not on this side of the room and finally on this side of the room. It's a very pleasing and a very relief-ful experience. Like 4 books, 5 books, apni pushe, take your writing, making notes, doing whatever, and then finally you get to the other side of the table, and like it's a wonderful feeling, and I hope and I pray many of you get to experience that very soon. And if I'm allowed to tell the plan for the day, so I plan on giving a brief introduction about my journey, the things that I've done, some do's and don'ts, and then I would actually want you guys to ask me questions that you want to. Like, because बहुत बार toppers talk आते हैं, they'll do this, they'll do that, and then you'll be like, अरे बस करो यार, आपको तो बोल रहा था. So I would actually want to solve or listen to what questions you have or what perceptions do you have about this exam. So এটা চলবে তো? Got a problem নেই এটা কি? Awesome. So in very brief, my name is Shubham Shukla. I secured All India rank of 43 in the very recently completed examination. Thank you. And this was my 4th attempt at this examination. I started preparing at the back end of 2017. And for my first 2 attempts, my optional was chemistry. And then I switched over to political science because बोलते हैं ना कभी आप केमिस्ट्री लेके कुछ लेके आप गड़बड़ कर देते हो. So it's that like things didn't work out very well for me with chemistry, so I had to jump to an optional where I think I could have done better. And this is where political science came into the picture. So 3rd attempt, I wrote my mains again. Like I've written mains in all my 4 attempts. Like shop bar pre clear ho gaye. Sometimes by a narrow margin, sometimes by a wider margin, but I was able to clear pre consecutively. So in my 3rd attempt with pol science, there was an improvement in my total score, but not good enough to get me an interview. But all thanks to COVID. I mean, probably I'm the only person after Xi Jinping who is thanking COVID. I was able to get a lot of time for my 4th attempt, and I worked on my optional and my GS, and things started to get better for me. And this year, finally, I made it to the interview. I had a very good interview experience, and I was someone who actually gave a lot of mock interviews. And if you have seen me on YouTube, there's one mock interview by Apti Plus itself. So I went for the Apti Plus mock interviews. I was in Delhi at that time. So I'm going to mock diyechi Apti Plus. If you haven't watched it, go to YouTube, watch. It's probably uploaded, right? If I'm not wrong. So this is something that I have also done, and this is something that worked for me. And interviews went well. The role of Apti Plus team in that was very much important, given the fact that it was my very first interview, and even it was my 4th attempt, but I was facing the interviews for the first time. And this is where I think a lot of help from different sources, Apti Plus being one of them, clicked in, and I finally made it to the list, and I made it to the list very well. Like 43 rank पे तो IAS मिल जाना चाहिए, मिल जाएगा, like just jokes apart, but मिल जाएगा. 43 rank पे IAS मिल जाएगा, which has been my first preference. So this has been my journey, very brief. And why did I narrate to you my journey? A couple of reasons. For a major part of my preparation, I prepared from Kolkata itself. Like I was preparing based on the books and whatever the coaching materials were available to me. Like they बोलते हैं ना कि दिल्ली नहीं जाओगे तो prepare नहीं होगा. I can be called a 90% example of that, because only the last 10% of my preparation was in Delhi, only because I was faltering at the same stage again and again, and my mentor called me कि Delhi आजा मेरे पास. Right, so I went to Delhi on his insistence, and then the last more than 10%, otherwise 90% of my preparation has been from Kolkata itself. আমার বাড়িটা হচ্ছে দমদমের দিকে, দমদম গোরা বাজার, if you know that place. And I'm someone who is not a Bengali by birth, but a Bengali by spirit. Spirit as in ki আমার স্কুলিংটা এখানে হয়েছিল, and then I'm someone who knows a little bit of Bangla, লিখতে পড়তে বুঝতে বলতেও একটু পেরে যায়. It's not very fluent. You cannot compare me to someone who has been in a Bengali touch with since day one of his birth, right? But then I think I managed well, and this is what the biggest misconception I want to dispel, that कि दिल्ली जाके ही हो. आपको अपने रूम से, आपको अपने सिटी से, आपको अपने टाउन से करना है तो होगा, right? Like there's a very famous Bangla quote, "Joto mot toto." They're different, but there are different views, there are different opinions about it. There are different ways, but you can never say one way is better than the other. For example, let's say, sir, about you. If you think आपको दिल्ली जाके करने से ही होगा, well, but you cannot say that सबका दिल्ली जाके करने से ही होगा. Your path is very different from the path of your friend there, and this is what I want to say. Point है, dedication रहिए, dedicated रहिए. I gave 5 years of my life to this, the 5 best years of my life, because I had this belief in myself. कि যদি আমি চাইছি আমি সেটা করে নেব. I had this faith in myself, and this is probably what clicked for me. And this is what I would want each and every one of you to do. Most importantly, before every Lakshmikant or every note or every modern history spectrum, whatever, optional, anything, have this faith in yourself. How many of you think you'll be able to make it to the civil services one day? The rest of you don't have faith in yourself. Have this faith in yourself. Keep telling yourself from day one that you will be there in the civil services one day. For some it will be like 1 year, 1 attempt. For some it will be 2, 3, 4. I know very good people who have done it in 7 attempts, 8 attempts. Because why? They never knew when to give up. Right? And history is filled with examples of people who have chose to struggle and chose to never give up. This is what I am trying to say. First person जिसको आपको convince करना है is you yourself. I'm sure you guys, I've got 1 second. I hope you guys are comfortable with me using English, Hindi and Bangla, right? करो शुद्ध होच्छे ना तो? पक्का? चलो ठीक है. So this is what I have been trying to tell you. Have faith on yourself. Misconceptions की basis से मत भागिए. Do not go into rumor mongering. कि पश्चिम बंगे थे कि people are biased towards Bengal, people are biased towards South India, people are biased towards North India. एक center पे जाता है, the papers are mixed and they are corrected. And based on the roll number, you are uploaded and your result is being made. People do not get to know your name. Let's say your name is Mr. Shubham Yadav, and your name is Sir Abhijit. So they won't know. Yadav, you can be from Bihar, you can be from Haryana, you can be from Kolkata, anywhere in this country. Abhijit Das, right? You can be from Assam, you can be from Odisha, you can be from West Bengal. No one knows. कौन किसे? आपका नाम, they won't even ask your name. In fact, the UPSC guys have said that do not mention your name anywhere. They will tell you. Why? Because ये process पूरी तरह एक randomized process है. Your answers paper might be, आपका GS1 might be checked in Chennai, GS2 might go to Northeast. You never know. What the point is, do not fall for Roman mongering कि वेस्ट बंगाल में अच्छा नहीं जाता है, वेस्ट बंगाल में खराब जाता है, उड़ीसा में अच्छा जाता है, पंजाब में खराब जाता है, दिल्ली में अच्छा जाता है, मुंबई में खराब जाता है. नो, खराब बस एक ही चीज़ जाएगा या अच्छा एक ही चीज़ जाएगा. What you are doing in your exams, and this is what I wanted to talk to you guys, because probably at my time there weren't enough people stressing on this. These are notes सबके पास है, notes सबके बनाए हैं, but it's about defeating yourself here or winning over yourself here. If you are able to do this thing here, half of the battle is won. And trust me, why is there emphasis on mental conditioning? संदीप माहेश्वरी को पता है? वो इतने ज्ञान से सबको क्यों क्या बात बोल रहा है? He is talking very simple things. बहुत common चीजें बोलता है. He is not talking anything out of the world. He talks very well. He talks normal things that you should be knowing. But probably, unfortunately, many of us do not know this. And this is what I am trying to tell you guys. अपने ऊपर faith रखिए. Keep this in sync with this. ठीक है? Do not treat this exam as a matter of life and death. Treat this just as an exam. Just another exam that will get you a very prestigious course. Just this, nothing else. और एक दिन your time will come. Have faith. किसी के लिए first attempt में, किसी के लिए 7th attempt में, किसी के लिए 4th attempt में. But if you have this faith on yourself, your time will come irrespective of the number of attempts that you make. And this is something that I've been telling people everywhere. Right? Now I'll talk about a couple of do's and don'ts. First, don'ts. Like, okay, before I start, like, can you give me an idea, like, which year will you be appearing for UPSC? 23? 23, 24. And even beyond 24? 24, 24 के बाद भी कोई करने का सोच रहा है? Good. I like this. So mostly we have people who will be appearing next year as well as next to next year. Because कोई लोग शायद नहीं graduate करेंगे next to next year, right? Good. So the important thing here is a couple of things that I do not want you guys to do. Number one, crowding of resources. जैसे किसी मैंने बहुत legends के बारे में सुने हैं. इससे पढ़ेंगे, उससे पढ़ेंगे, इटा पढ़ेंगे, देखेंगे वो. Do not do this. This will hurt you very bad. Other than your optional, I would personally not recommend you to follow more than 2 sources maximum. Let's say you are in coaching, right? तो notes note देते हैं. That is your one source. Other than that, बहुत मन किया, refer to one more source. बहुत मन किया other than that. Let's for example, polity, very common subject. You have your coaching notes, supplemented with Lakshmikant, khatam. Do not run after DD Basu. More than 2 sources करोगे, revise नहीं कर पाओगे. Trust me, more than content, it's about revision. 3 घंटे যদি আপনাদের কি পড়া দেওয়া হয়, পুরিটা answers লিখতে, even if you do not know about something, you'll definitely be able to write something on the other. Content is very important, but it's not the thing. Content সবার কাছে, when you start preparing, you must, like let's say if you started preparing 2 months ago, you already have seen the difference in yourself. Why? Where you were 2 months ago and where you are now. So content, my friends, is important, but it's not the only thing. It's very important that you revise a lot. And by a lot, the more the merrier. Right? So revision is very important. First thing, do not overdo the contents. Revision is important. Third, practice. Many of you do not want to practice because, hey, wait, to ghum paini. I do it to shwe jai 2-3 घंटा. 2-3 घंटा you can finish a good mock. If you want to. Practice. Analyze karo. Practice your mocks, analyze what mistakes are you making, where you can be better. Every topper will tell you this, trust me. I haven't heard of a topper in my 4 or 5 year period जो आपको ये बोला मैं प्लान तो आज तक practice किया ही नहीं है. अगर कोई मिला होगा तो भाई प्रणाम उनको. Because he might be someone who is very gifted. To be very honest, do not take it to your heart, guys. Most of us are not gifted. I'm not gifted. I'm just someone who had to work hard, dedicated. Practice a lot. Next, do not follow herd mentality. कि शुभम जी ये कर रहे हैं, यादव जी ये कर रहे हैं, दाश भाई ये कर रहे हैं, तो हम भी अब ये करेंगे. नहीं, शुभम जी या फिर क्या नाम था? शुभम जी या फिर दाश भाई हमारा आपका पेपर नहीं लिखेंगे. If you have to write a paper, you are the one who will be writing it. They won't be writing. They'll be writing their own paper. So सुनो सबका, करो खुद का. There'll be 500 strategies in the market. Listen to everyone. Do only what is suitable to you. For example, Dada, have you decided your optional? Yeah. Yes. What is your option? Anthropology. যদি আপনাকে বলে দেওয়া হয় কি no, আপনারা সবাই বন্ধুরা পল সায়েন্স করছে. Will you do it? That's the thing. Because that is something that you do not want to do, you are not comfortable to, you do not get a good vibe from it. Do not follow herd mentality. Herd mentality बोले आप कोचिंग एक रात पहले कि आज रात भर जगते हैं. But एक रात पहले it is very important you get a very good sleep. These are the things that you should be doing, should not be doing. There will be more. Right? What all should you be doing? Revision, not too many sources, practicing a lot, having faith on yourself, most important. And last thing, please, toppers के copies, answer copies. See as many as possible. मैंने 3 attempt में बहुत कम देखे थे. 3 attempts I couldn't make it. 4th attempts my score drastically jumped in GS and optional. Drastically. I'll tell you why drastically. I'll tell you after some time. If someone asks me, I'll tell you. Why? Because मेरे को पता चल गया तरीका लिखने का. कैसे? I refer to copies of toppers कि what different was they doing. And this is something that clicked for me. बहुत से तरीका I got many strategies that I got from them. कि toppers are doing it this way or that way. And this is what I incorporated in my answers, beautified my answers, made my answers better. As I'm telling you, content मेरे पास जो first attempt में था बहुत similar ही था fourth attempt में, maybe let's say 10% right. But my marks over from third attempt to fourth attempt in mains rose by over 150 or 140, like that. Why? Because I refer to toppers copies a lot. They help me with presentation of answers, how to make. यहाँ पे let's say if you guys are building a building गाड़ी चुनूंगा. So आप लोग जब building खड़ा करें, almost everyone can build a building, but the one who will beautify it the best. अच्छा presentation कर देगा, garage दिल नीचे ने, and then there will be shops and everything. Swimming pool दिए देवे, शेटर वाली तो सबसे बेसिक. And trust me when I say this, 20 questions in a GS paper. 10 minutes, 15 minutes max is the time an examiner will get to check one paper. Maximum 15 minutes, not more than that. He won't be reading every answers. This is based on my analysis over the past 4 years. He won't be reading every answers that you write. But if there's something that you can do to make your answers very attractive, what's the loss? Won't you bring it? Like, let's say everyone is writing paragraph, food processing. One of you has decided to make a diagram. The mega food park है, फिर first level clusters है, farm level clusters है, they are all interlinked. उसको box में कर दिया and you've written how a mega food park works. Don't you think this is something that will catch the eye? Yes. And एक हिंदी में बहुत famous phrase है जो दिखता है वो दिखता है. Very true. So this is the small things that you have to do. You do these small things, your marks won't increase much per question. Let's say if your marks increases like let's say 1 mark per question, you are getting 3.5, you are getting 4.5. 75 questions. How much does your mark increase? How much does your mark increase? 75. If not 75, 60. If not 60, 50. Isn't it an increase? Now why is it important? Because आप अगर list देखोगे, एक marks पे there are 7 or 8 people fighting. Like my total score is 1001. There are 3 people who have scored 1001. A friend of mine has scored around 962 or 63. There are 7 people at that score. Okay? And this is what you need to understand. A fight for every marks that your life depends on it. कैसे fight करना है? Examiner को धमकी देके marks देने तो तुम्हारी बेटी को उठा लूँगा. ये नहीं करना है. नहीं. Don't do this. You'll be disqualified from the process. 500 का नोट भी नहीं चिपकाना है. Sir, please consider. Thanking you. Yours very honestly. Do not do this as well. The only way you can fight for those marks is by writing better than your peers. Now you do not know how well your peers have written. No one knows that. So you have to fight with yourself. Make sure the previous test that you guys write, उससे better you write in the next one. कैसे? यही incremental changes. ब्यूरोक्रेसी में भी जब आप जाओगे, पहला दिन आप घुसोगे, it will not be like आज मैं सिस्टम तबाह कर दूंगा, पूरा नया सिस्टम लाऊंगा. नो, भगवान विष्णु नहीं हो आप लोग. वो काम भगवान विष्णु का है. आपका काम है bringing incremental changes. You keep your chamber clean. आपको देख के तो जूनियर्स अपना चेंबर क्लीन करना शुरू करेंगे, अपना घर क्लीन करना स्टार्ट करेंगे. उनको देख के और लोग घर क्लीन रखेंगे अपना. It will spill over to the streets. Streets clean होने लगेंगे. It might take 4 years, 5 years. For example, स्वच्छ भारत अभियान. एक कॉन्शियसनेस हो रहा है कि नहीं? लाइक प्रॉब्ली गाड़ी के पहले ओला से आ रहे हो, बाहर फेंक देते हैं. आप फेंकने पहले आप लोग एक बार सोचते हो. This is called incremental change. This is what you need to build. This is what you'll be doing as a bureaucrat. This is what you have to do as an aspirant. So I've been talking for long, and I do not want that sentiment. यही दादा ऐसे से नाथ करता है, बुक करे से नाथ पर चले गए. I would want to know what you guys think, or what you guys, if you have any questions. I have a lot of time on my hands. Feel free to ask. Okay, so like, do we give the mic to them, or they'll just be asking? My email.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
My name is Saurabh. Sir, please explain about CSAT. How to prepare CSAT actually?
CSAT.
Yes, CSAT.
So Saurabh, right?
Yes.
So before I start off with CSAT, I'll be very honest with you. I am an engineer by my subject graduation. So CSAT was something that was never very difficult for me. Like আমি first attempt আমার কয়েকটা CSAT এর mock solve করেছি. I was like এটা তো পেরে যাবো. And then since then I've never scored less than 140. And I've never practiced the mocks after that. I'll tell you why. Because As an engineer, we used to play with a lot of maths, numbers, and everything. This might not be the case with everyone. इसीलिए, do not ignore CSAT. Have you guys watched that movie Gajni? उसमें संजय सिंघान ने पूरी बॉडी में टैटू बनाता है. नहीं मत करना, और पिट जाओ तुम लोग घर में आके मम्मी पापा से. ठीक है, तो do not make a tattoo, but पेज लो, अपने स्टडी टेबल के सामने चिपकाओ. Do not ignore CSAT. What you should do? 2 ways. First, let's say you are strong in maths, like maths or comprehension. Which phase you are strong in? Comprehension. Your focus, if there's 35 questions on comprehension, let's say 30 questions, 30 into 22, 60 plus 15, 75 marks. Your target should be the strongest section in your comprehension or in your CSAT paper. You do not lose more than 5 to 6 marks on it. कैसे करोगे? Practice a lot. यहाँ पे है, their coaching will be guiding you. There are a lot of free resources, online resources available as well. YouTube में बहुत कुछ चल रहा है. Take up बैंक एग्जाम में comprehension आते रहता है. Practice them. If comprehension is a stronger domain, if the quantitative part is a stronger domain, again just the same. 50 questions, 50 into 100 plus 25, 125. 125 में maximum you can use is 15 to 20 marks. 100 लीजिए. Do not even think about going in maths. So you have to work on this. कैसे? Practice करो. Questions are not repeated, but the type of questions are repeated. For example, speed, distance, time 4-5 साल से आ रहा है. Both upstream, downstream 4-5 साल से आ रहा है. Syllogism आते रहता है. इस साल पता नहीं आया है कि I do not remember. ठीक है. Simple interest, compound interest, profit and loss. वो cube को ऐसे काटेंगे, वैसे काटेंगे. ये सब आते रहता है. ये इस टाइप का. तो these are the questions that do not repeat, but the type of questions repeat. But like वही है. If you understand the concepts, कि upstream downstream का क्या concept है, will you not be able to solve? Understand the concepts. The coaching will be there to help you. यहाँ नहीं हो रहा है, you have very good faculties. Catch them. समझो. नहीं है, online resources भी use करो, supplement करो. Solve. And do not take this paper lightly. I know very good people. I know a very good friend of mine. उसके GS में prelims कितने पता है आते हैं? 125, 130. Out of 200 GS पेपर 1 में उसको बेचारे का CSAT नहीं निकला. और भी 1 या 2 क्वेश्चन से. Why? Because उसको लगा CSAT कर लेंगे. And he is an engineer. Probably जो भी reason हुआ हो, he was not in touch, whatever be the reason. Do not ignore anything. Study समझ में आ गया? Study, understand the concepts, practice, re-practice, and then be confident. Mocks do. What I've been telling you, practice mocks as much as possible. ठीक है ना? सौरभ भाई क्वेश्चन हो गया आपका? नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन प्लीज. यस मैम. अरे बैठिए, कोई बात नहीं, आराम से बैठ के बोलो.
Good afternoon, sir. My question is that whether we should work on the compulsory mains paper in English and general language.
Okay. Please sit down.
Thank you, sir.
Guys, you can sit and ask your question. No issues as such. Why not? Like you do not have to work that hard as compared to your other GS papers or your optional paper, but do not ignore that paper as well. Because more often than not, we tend to be overconfident in things, right? It's good to be confident. आपको तो सब कोई बोलेगा लाइफ में. It's good to be confident, but it's not good to be overconfident. So if you think you need your Bangla or your Hindi, need some revision, go for it.
So how could we revise from the previous year question papers?
Previous year question paper is a brilliant source. You know what type of questions are being asked. Let's say if there's a paragraph translation. Try translating it, get it checked by your friends, teachers, parents.
So from someone I heard that the compulsory papers are just averagely marked.
No. Again, rumor mongering. Again, something that I've told you about. There are people who have actually failed in these papers as well. And उनका मार्क्स शीट कैसे होता है? English इतना, Hindi इतना. Since this candidate has not qualified regional paper, his other papers were not checked. So you might have written better answers than, let's say, a rank 1, but they won't even be checked. Do not fall for rumors, guys. मतलब बॉलीवुड और यूपीएससी इसमें रूमर्स फेमस है. इनफेमस है, सॉरी, नॉट फेमस, इनफेमस है. बॉलीवुड में रोज की शादी उससे होती है, यहाँ पे रोज इसका पेपर ऐसे चेक होता है. डू नॉट फॉल फॉर दिस. प्रिपेयर वेल. अपने एंड से गिल्ट नहीं होना चाहिए. You can lie to a lot of people, you cannot lie to yourself. So whenever you think you are on the verge of lying or on the verge of making an easy way out, ask yourself.
So we can practice from the previous
year questions. 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. कर लो आराम से, वही practice करो, get it evaluated. ठीक है, you don't have to dedicatedly prepare notes and everything, just get an idea of things. ठीक है, thank you. बैठ के.
गुड आफ्टरनून सर. सर मेरा क्वेश्चन है आप 3 साल में क्या क्या गलती की थी जो आप 4th अटेम्प्ट में नहीं किए, आप क्या क्या गलती?
Very good question. Thank you. नाम क्या सर आपका? Sabyasachi bro, couple of mistakes I'll be very honest about. Number 1, not enough practice of answer writing. Number 2, not following toppers copies. Number 3, writing very simple answers and not adding data, values, facts, diagrams, figures, flowcharts. And number 4, the biggest problem was my optional. So these are the 4 places that I worked upon and it has paid dividends for me this time. Okay, thank you. Yeah, next, who wants to ask? Anyone, you can have any general questions. I know there's no one judging you. Better to ask a stupid question today than making a very major mistake tomorrow. Yes, sir.
सर गुड इवनिंग. मेरा नाम Serivces है सर. ऐसे में कैसे कंटेंट लिखे ताकि ज़्यादा मार्क आ सके. और सेकंड क्वेश्चन ये है, अगर ऐसे लिखते हो कहीं किसी जगह पे ग्रामेटिकल मिस्टेक हो जाए, क्या वो ऐसा ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम माना जाता है या मार्क कर सकता है?
ठीक है. So about content about essay, आपने content का पूछा सर. So first part of his question was about the content of essay. So content of essays is very simple. Your GS papers, your optional, and everything that's happening around you. Current affairs, बोलो या फिर anything common things. And more often than not, I've seen where people who have scored very well in essay also use pop culture references. Right? For example, Indian children like this raising trend of like old age homes. I remember reading a topper's copy. I do not know whose copy it was, but he has mentioned that scene from बागबान जहाँ पे parents are like कि अब हम अपने ही बच्चों के घर में मेहमान हो गए हैं. And he has used this to justify why old age homes are popping up in India. Right? The content comes from everywhere around you. Your GS papers, your optional, the world that is around you. It's very okay to use pop culture references as well. Bagban is an example. Modern culture references, it's absolutely okay. Make sure the culture reference is not indecent. You cannot use gangs of Wasseypur reference in your. ठीक है ना? ये सरदार खान नाम है हमारा. This is not empowerment of minorities. No, this is crime. You're getting my point, right? If you want to talk about empowerment of minorities, you have to talk about Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. You have to talk about that fast bowler from वहाँ पे कश्मीर से क्या नाम उसका? Umran. This is called empowerment of minorities. You have to talk about Stand Up India scheme, right? So these are the points that you get from your content. This is how your content is shaped. And other than that, if you were to talk about spelling mistakes, avoid them. Grammatical mistakes, avoid them. कैसे? Read a lot of newspapers. Read a lot of toppers copies. Try writing on your own. Gradually avoid them. Thoda it might hurt a little, but at the end of the day, your flow is very important. You must have very good flow, very good pronunciation, but then avoid karo mistakes. And this comes with practice. The more you practice, the more it will be avoided. I hope I have answered your question, right? नहीं हुआ? Question answer नहीं किया? अच्छा. हाँ yes sir बताइए.
Hello sir.
Hello bhai.
My name is Abbas. First of all, I would like to congratulate on your achievement.
Thank you.
My question is that in your 4th attempt, all of this attempt you have cleared the prelims with a margin like a good mark.
Sometimes good enough, sometimes very
So
tough.
how did you manage to clear the prelims?
Okay, so you want to ask about what I did for prelims that was helping me calculate everything? Awesome. Please yes. So about prelims, if I say that prelims is probably the weirdest stage of this examination, how many of you will agree? It is actually the weirdest state of examination because you know there is answer in front of you, but then you will be like, "Hey." This is the normal reaction. This has happened to me 4 times in every attempt. Like हर attempt में मिसा होता है. Why? Because this is something you cannot control. Anything can be asked. But then the thing is that कि उसी में answer छुपा है. If it's tough for you, it's tough for everyone. Keep this in mind. Drive this mentality. There's something that's tough for you. আপনার জন্য যদি কঠিন, সবার জন্য কঠিন হবে. This is a rule. The law of averages talks about this. Right. So what actually helped me in my prelims? Number 1, mentality. Biggest thing that helped me was mentality कि ठीक है, tough आएगा, सबके tough आएगा, cut off गिरेगा, which was actually happening 3-4 साल से. So I was prepared for it. Second, I kept my sources very minimal and I revised my sources. And this is something that helped me a lot. Third, option elimination and intelligent guessing. Again, I'm using the word intelligent guessing. I'm not like कि अक्कड़ बक्कड़ बम्बे भोगवान. No, shit. Mahapa. ठीक है ना? Do not do this. Intelligent guessing क्या होता है? Let's say, for example, I'll give you an example. 2020 वाला prelims paper, there was this Marathi poet who was very famous for writing Bengali poems. So उसका question था. And उस question में one of the options was that कि his influence or nationalism was limited to Bengali nationalism. Now think for yourself. Is it possible that poet from some other state who writes in Bangla is considered only with the independence of... No. He'll be concerned with the independence of his motherland, India. This is what you use. This is called intelligent guessing. You immediately eliminate that option, and once that option is eliminated, tuck, 3 options jayega ek saath. Also called the domino effect. Right? So this is what you need to focus on. Intelligent guessing या option elimination. कैसे होगा? Practice करोगे होगा. There are a lot of YouTube videos on this. There are a lot of ways. खुद common sense use करना. The biggest asset that you have is your brain. इसका कोई value नहीं है. Because you cannot actually measure the value. More often than not, you will be using this in ways you don't even know. Exam में कुछ click कर जाना ऐसे. ये कैसे हो सकता है? जैसे वो last year question आया था. Water intensive crop. 2 options could be simply eliminated if you know that कि यार ये तो इतना पानी नहीं खाता या फिर इससे ज़्यादा ये पानी खाता है. ठीक है ना? Because sugarcane is a highly water intensive crop. There were 2 options that could be very easily eliminated because they consume water less than sugarcane. This was common sense. Right? Because they were not that juicy crops. They did not grow in arid region ऐसे करके. This is where you use common sense. तो ये भी एक point हो गया. Lastly, revision बोला, practicing as many mocks as possible. Prelims के लिए the more the number of mocks you give, better. Analyze your mocks. Let's say you have done question number 1, very good. Question number 2, the very good. Question number 3, अपना दिन भूल होइछे. बेटा circle करूँ, immediately ये solution start एक bin. Leave that solution, leave that question, come back after 1 week, re-attempt that question. If 20 questions are like these, I can give you in writing that 16 of them you will be able to write. Do correct in your second attempt because now you have the knowledge, you have that in your head. And more often than not, like let's say I'm having a very general conversation. But then इसमें आप लोग में से किसी एक को उठाया, उसकी मैंने बेइज्जती कर दी. They will remember this for most of his life. ठीक है ना? Because people, we have this tendency of remembering things through our mistakes or through bad events. And when you're making a mistake and you revisit it, there is a very strong chance that you will remember what mistake you have. So this is my flow of go. And lastly, do not ignore current affairs. Ideally, current affairs के लिए, if you want me to answer, ideally 1 newspaper 1+1 compilation. I have seen your current affairs compilation Apti Plus वाला for my interviews as well. It is good. If you want to rely on this, you can fairly rely. But newspaper पढ़ने के habit बनाओ. It is boring at start. It might be tiring. It might take you too long. But bureaucrats read newspapers. Newspaper is like what you call Bible for aspirants. आपको बीजेपी कांग्रेस नहीं पढ़ना है. No. बीजेपी वर्सेस कांग्रेस वर्सेस टीएमसी वर्सेस पीएम नहीं पढ़ना ही नहीं है. आपको क्या पढ़ना है? बीजेपी क्या पॉलिसी लाई है, कांग्रेस ने इस पॉलिसी पे क्या क्रिटिसिज्म किया है, पॉलिसी, प्रोग्राम्स, स्कीम्स, इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस. अब लेट्स से पुतिन ने कोई मसाला स्टेटमेंट डाल दी या फिर अभिषेक बच्चन की बेटी वाज स्पॉटेड एट दिस एयरपोर्ट. नॉट नीडेड. यूपीएससी वोंट आस्क कि अभिषेक बच्चन की बेटी का ने किस कलर का फ्रॉक पहना था. But they might ask you something about that airport. छत्रपति शिवाजी का जो let's say कुछ CST छत्रपति शिवाजी terminus. And छत्रपति शिवाजी is also in news very frequently because of rising nationalism. And छत्रपति शिवाजी being an icon of our cultural history, a question can come on this. तो देखो कहाँ से कहाँ connect हो गया, right? So we have to be very aware about what's happening. Newspapers are a very good source. ठीक है? I hope I have answered your question, sir. बताइए next question. Let him ask, then we can take the mic from him.
Sir, आपका इस जर्नी में मोटिवेशन क्या
Mic is
था?
not on.
Tap करिए mic पे एक बार.
On?
हाँ बोल.
सर आपकी इस जर्नी में मोटिवेशन क्या था? 4 साल की जर्नी में
technically 5 साल, but 30 years. So, if you guys allow me, I'll share a story. আমি এখানেই বড় হয়েছি কলকাতায়, so Kolkata is a very metropolitan city. I mean, load shedding issue হয় না বেশি, and like my area was very good. ওখানে ওই জলটল ভরে যেত না, and best বাজার হাট সব কিছু আশেপাশে ছিল, মল সব কাজ ছিল, ডায়মন্ড প্লাজা. So I had the best of facilities when I was growing around me. And I went to my college in BITS Pilani. BITS Pilani is in Rajasthan. It is probably in the middle of nowhere. Like the nearest Domino's at one point of time was 85 kilometers from my place. So it was a very remote town and was famous for the college. So inside the college we had almost every amenities as such. But outside college there were villages and all, which probably were not even close to the level of affluence that a city like Kolkata has, or the facilities that a city like Kolkata has. So in my second year I joined NSS. So NSS में project करा हुआ like neighbor villages or health, public awareness, education. I used to visit these villages and I used to like hit me in my head कि there is two Indias. Like you must have seen the two India debate by Vedas. It's a very different two India debate. One India was very much progressive, had the best of facilities. The other one was living in a bare existence, and it was very different. This was in 2015-16. This was when I realized that probably I could do more for people like them by becoming an administrator than by becoming a good engineer. And this is what my motivation was. I won't lie to you. Like I do not have shame in admitting that যখন আমার মেইনস টা ক্লিয়ার হতো না, I used to be like কি কিসের জন্য পড়েছি, আমার বন্ধুরা এখানে ঘুরতে যাচ্ছে, ওখানে ঘুরতে যাচ্ছে, এই এখানে পার্টি করছে, অত টাকা কামাচ্ছে, আমি বসে আছি নিজের বাবার টাকার উপরে. Like every expense was being borne by my family. I had some savings, right? So I had this question, but then after a couple of days I used to bounce back because I knew that okay, I have to work for that last person in life, and this has been my motivation. I've been talking about this a lot. If this is a line and the first person is the most affluent and the last person is the least affluent, I have to work for this last person, and this has been what has been driving me. I have a lot of plans in my head. I want to do this, I want to do that, but then as I've always talking about incremental changes. पहला दिन bureaucracy में घुस के सिंगम नहीं बनता है, ठीक है ना? It's about incremental changes, and this is something that I want to do, and that's why I've chosen IAS. Like for a very long period of time, I also wanted to become an IFS. पैरिस में जाएंगे, यहाँ जाएंगे, कोलोसियम के सामने मतलब फोटो खिंचाएंगे, like Instagram पे इतने followers होंगे, no. But then this was something that I actually wanted to do. So this is what has kept me motivated. This is what has actually pushed me at times when I wanted to quit. Okay? Please pass the mic.
Sir, what is your strategy to revise effectively?
Okay. So I'll tell you what I used to do as a revision. See, so we have 7 days a week, right? 5 days a week I used to study. 6th day, whatever I studied during those 5 days, I used to revise. If needed, I used to take the 7th day as well. ठीक है ना? And एक बार जब ये revision हो गया, like let's say June में, I'm done with, like let's say I've done with polity before June. The polity में I'll be revising polity. In June में I'll be revising polity plus 5 days में whatever I've studied in, let's say if I'm studying modern history in June, so June में I will be revising polity from previous month and modern history from this month. Next month, July में I'm doing geography, so I'll be revising modern history from previous month as well as whatever I've done during that in geography during those 5 days. This was my revision strategy. I think it paid off very well for me. There are other strategies as well. Some people actually क्या करते हैं कि 3 weeks they study, 1 week they revise, which is almost very much the same. It's about how, again, सुनो सबका करो खुद का. If there's a strategy that is comfortable to you, do that. But since you asked me what is my strategy, this was what I used to do. 5 days study, 1.5 or 2 days of revision. और मान लो संडे को रिवीजन जल्दी खत्म हो गया तो थोड़ा वीडियो गेम खेल लेंगे, तो फुटबॉल देख लेंगे, इस टाइप का कुछ है. ठीक है? नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन प्लीज. पास कर दिए, लाइक देयर समवन हु वांट्स टू आस्क इन द बैक.
Hello sir. Sir, how did you prepare for GS score? Because sometimes they ask the quotation wala question, like last year they asked, but Dalai Lama का कुछ quotation था, विवेकानंद का कुछ quotation था, एरिक्सन और का कुछ. then it's totally unpredictable. Like,
Yeah.
and how did you answer that?
Okay, so I'll answer your question in two phases. One was how did I do everything about GS? So GS4, sorry. So GS4 mein there is this one thing. You answer all your papers from your head. You answer GS4 from your heart. GS4 का questions आप देखोगे, it will be such that it will test you how your moral character is, how your values are. They want to test you on this. So the most important thing is answering from your heart. जो आपको दिल को ठीक लगे, the best thing to do, what you have done, place while answering GS4 questions, place yourself in the shoe of the examiner. And अगर examiner को ये question दिया था, या तुमको दिया था, तो what would you have done? This is what my grandest strategy for GS4. Other than this, there is no strategy for GS4. There were other strategies as well. Let's say there are many keywords in GS4. Like when GS4 का syllabus देखोगे तो बहुत सारे values हैं. Aptitude, integrity. What I did was कि I made one for every value. I made one line definition, one or two real life examples, one or two personal life examples. I made a copy of that, and I used to refer that in that time. Case studies I did from Topper's copy, best source. आँख बंद करके best source. Right. Topper's copies देखा था. They have solved case studies very well, and I tried to copy this time. And about the quotation-based questions, so easy. Again, I'll tell you another quotation. This is by Albert Einstein. I do not need to know everything. I just need to know where to find it when I need it. इसका मतलब यही है present context कि I do not need to know every quotation. But once I see a quotation, I need to understand what is behind the mind of the person who has given a quotation. जैसे Albert Einstein का quotation है, this I use. उससे क्या मतलब है? It's not necessary to mug everything up. There are things that are inside your head. There are things that you will realize when the appropriate time comes, and then you will act accordingly. So you do not need to have. बोला शॉप কিছু মুখস্থ করা দরকার নেই. দরকার হচ্ছে বোঝা. And this is what. And then how do you relate it? Civil servants. Civil servants do not need to remember every rule that is in the constitution, but they need to understand how to be empathetic or emotionally intelligent civil servants. This is a good example, and you can give an example of, like, say, a very good example of an emotionally intelligent civil servant would be someone like जो भी बस्तर के DM है, I'm forgetting his name. उनका नाम मैंने नोट किया था, some Chandra or something. I don't remember, sorry. But he is someone who has been working among the tribals with a lot. Like वो tribals के बीच में खाते रहते हैं. He's widely respected, and everyone respects him. ठीक है, so you're understanding how the flow goes. वही तो. This is about a different type of quote. Let's say there's a quote that Hitler made. Hitler वैसे was a personality that is not to be respected. He's the personality to be abhorred. But then you have to understand the context of the things. किस context में उसने बोला है? ठीक है, this is what you do. You need to understand the context. You don't need to mug up the quotes. You need to understand किस context से बोला है. Explain that a bit, and then relate it with some current or present examples or examples from your own life. This is your answer. Clear? Awesome. Any more questions, please?
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Sir, what is your strategy regarding pol science optional?
Okay, about pol science optional. I did not read pol science ke books because I jumped to an optional very urgently. So I did not have the time to read books. I relied on a coaching note, a very famous coaching note, and I'm sure you're understanding which coaching I'm talking about, because this is my policy. If I'm going to some coaching, I'll not be talking about some other coaching. So there's this very famous coaching institution. उसके notes market में मिलते हैं 1,000 rupees के आसपास. They'll deliver to your room. I found it very comprehensive. I supplemented that with articles, newspaper articles and everything. And exam के पहले I did a little bit of reading, joined a crash course, and then did a little bit of answer writing. Answer writing, not those mocks one. I did not even write a single mock because I knew that I could write. I know that आज के दिले हमें लिखे देबो. But then I had this issue of content. So first I worked on my content for pol science. Then I understood how presentation is to be made, how the flow is to be, and then exam hall में गेले direct. So this was my grand strategy for pol science. Okay? Any more questions? Yes, sir. Take the mic, please.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Ankush Saudar, and I'm newcomer in this.
Okay.
And my question is that there's a popular saying that goes.
ठीक है. Tap on the mic, right? Not sure, tap on the mic. Yeah.
Sir, there is a problem saying that most like you have to catch yourself with everything that you go for, even when you are preparing for any civil service exam. Actually, I am preparing for WPSC exam.
Okay.
So, to how extent is true that you have to catch with everything? Like for example, I am heavily associated with sports and music, etc. So, how much I have to compensate with the things that are my other activities? Besides.
So, thank you for your question about detachment. So, if you want to know how did I detach myself, I did not. Bushe, release it. I did not detach. I won't lie कि मैं Instagram सब बंद कर दिया, कुछ कर दिया. I made Instagram account very recently, around 2 or 3 weeks back, result निकलने के बाद. But I used to use Facebook. मैं YouTube पे भी फ्री होके गाना नहीं सुनता था, ये करता, Spotify पे गाने सुनता था. I used to play some video games, but that was never in the time when I was studying. I have no shame in telling again that I've never studied 14 hours a day, 18 hours a day. Some toppers बोलते हैं ना, I studied 25 hours a day. I've never done that. I've never ever done that. I've maximum, on an average, I used to go 6 to 8 hours a day. But those 6 to 8 hours were full dedicated hours. कोनो फाकी नहीं, shit time में. ठीक है, nothing. Like my phone was to be out, it was my laptop, like and my books and whatever, my notes, whatever I made. This was what. एक बार वो 6 and 8 hours used to be very intense. उसमें मैं थक जाता था. I used to get into some activity. For example, like you can see a little bit of booty right now. 2019, I had a very chiseled body because I had taken into some sort of bodybuilding and everything. Then COVID hit and my other dal chal, shop ho gets you, and then like my booty came out. So I was involved into bodybuilding and all. I used to watch a lot of football. I played a football a bit, but this was mostly before the pandemic. And that time also I was preparing for this examination. So no. There's no need for you to detach. It's important to moderate. Because I'll tell you very honestly, this is something that no one talks about. जब तुम्हारा IAS বা IPS বা কিছু হবে, the work pressure will be very high. Today's pressure is nothing before that. Will you like family में detach कर देते? बाबा आके बोलते हैं मैं तुम्हें चिनी ना, वो बच्चा के बेटा बोल रहा ना तो ये तुम्हारा के? He won't be saying this, right? आपको उसी फैमिली में रह के, उस सोसाइटी में रह के, you'll be attending parties, seminars, get together, but you'll be doing your work, right? So it's more important to balance rather than disassociate. ठीक है? This is what would be my advice. But अगर आपको लग रहा है कि Instagram delete कर देना, Facebook delete कर देना would do you good, please do that. ठीक है? Next question, please. Sir. ठीक है मैम. Hello, ma'am.
Can I speak without mic?
Okay, fine.
So could you share your interview experience with us? And the second thing is, if you want to give tips on interview to us, then what is it?
Please sit down. So, madam asked me a question about me sharing my interview experience. So it was a very pleasant experience. Like, बहुत सारे YouTube के चैनल्स आपको दिखाते होंगे कि आपके ऊपर मॉक इंटरव्यू में लोग चढ़ रहे हैं, ठीक है, आपकी ये कैसे हो रहा है तुम्हें ये भी नहीं पता होगा. It's not at all like this. It's a very cordial, very well respected people, very calm environment. तो ऐसा था कि अगर ये बॉटल ऐसे होगा ना तो रूम was so calm and so mellowing कि ये भी सुनाई देगा, ठीक है ना. It was so good. And the people were very good. They were well educated people, probably people at the top of their pinnacle in their respective fields. Not necessarily every one of us from government service. Like probably it said that there's a psychologist, there's someone from the army, there's someone from the education sector. Some industry experts might be invited as well. So it's a mixed bag. The chairman is always a member from the UPSC, chairman of that panel. But it's a mixed bag. So there'll be people who have had service in like a life in public service more than your current age. Like I'm 27. But my chairman, the chairman of UPSC, has probably worked in this field for over 35 years. So it's a huge age gap, and they know. The very moment they'll see you, they'll know. Like the very moment you start answering, they know what to do. So I have tried to be honest and as honest as possible with whatever they have asked me. And I had a very smooth experience. The questions that were asked, I was asked on a variety of topics, from my graduation to my optional political science. I was asked few questions on international relations, and then few questions on general discussions like disaster management, road accidents. Some questions on football as well, because football was a hobby of mine. Some questions on my research paper as well, which I presented in my college days. So I was asked on probably almost every aspect, and they were very respectful Why respectful? Because they are people who are actually अपना दादू age है काछा-काछी हो गए, or at least more than 10-15 years older than your dad, and they are very respectful to you. So just tone में I'm talking to you guys now. I wasn't talking to them like this, no chance. I was very mellow, very calm. I was smiling. I was trying to make them laugh without becoming like a pressure. Again, I was trying to have a very healthy. It's like a very healthy conversation with your 65-year-old friends. You know you want to have a good time, but you cannot say, "और भाई चलेगा, चल भाई थोड़ा आते हैं हम लोग." You cannot do this. No, I do not smoke as well. I just giving an example. You do not smoke. If you guys are smoking, do not smoke. ठीक है? What I want to tell you is that it's a very healthy conversation with people, 60-65-year-old people, and it's respectful both ways. And this is something that has played in my favor. I did well in my interviews. I gave a lot of mock interviews as well. One of them at this very reputed institution, and it was very helpful. Right, so I had a very general mock interview experience. And about the tips that I want to give you. Number one, read a lot. Reading का habit बनाओ. Newspapers पढ़ो, read some books, anything. Second, if you're not someone who is not comfortable speaking or cannot speak in a microphone, like you hesitated a bit, right? Do not hesitate. I do not know what your reason. I do not even want to know. That's your personal reason. Try coming out of this. कुछ मत करो. Very simple thing. अपने सामने मिरर के सामने जाओ. Daily 5 minutes. Take a topic. Like for example, let's say today you'll be saying, like you've studied about circular economy in your classes. Go in front of the mirror. 5 minutes का give us या 2 minutes का give a speech on circular economy in front of the mirror. Record yourself. See how you perform. See what you can do better. And this is how you get better at speaking. Speak in front of your friends. It can be anything. It can be talk about chop muri. Or it can be about anything like kuch ka. It necessarily not be upon India's foreign policy. Anything. Talk a lot. Interact with people. Number 3, be aware of what's happening around you. As मैंने बोला, Indian media channels नहीं देखना आपको, ठीक है? बहुत ज़्यादा वहाँ पे charged atmosphere है. You are administrators. You are to become administrators. You have to be neutral, non-partisan. Your loyalty lies to the constitution and the people. Your loyalty lies to that people who's probably sitting under a tent and does not have a house to live. Doesn't even have a regular source of income or even cannot assure himself of next meal. So you have to think as an administrator. अपने आसपास देखो. कई बार आपके दिमाग में कुछ आता हो ना कि यार इसके लिए ये कर सकती गवर्नमेंट. आता ही होगा कभी से भाई क्यों नहीं हो रहा है. यही सब चीजें आपको. This is what an administrator has to do. Think like an administrator. This is what I want to tell you. And be honest with yourself, with the people around you. This is what are tips I would really like to give. ठीक है मैम? बताइए किसका क्वेश्चन था?
Sir, how could you connect current affairs in actually mains point of view only? Because prelims में तो हम देख ही सकते हैं कि हाँ अपनी जैसे उठा ले तो कोई भी क्वेश्चन तो एक बेस बन जाता है. तो एक्चुअली मेंस के हिसाब से अगर देखा जाए तो मतलब वो कैसे एक्चुअली?
So, with respect to mains, whatever you write with respect to, let's say, a topic, most of the questions will be a mixture, which will require a mixture of current affairs based on some sort of basic knowledge. So basic knowledge you'll get from your notes, your books and everything. Extra knowledge will be what you'll be getting from those compilations or from newspaper, everything. So you'll have to mix them up. How do you do this? I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a question on NGOs. You can talk about the basic part will be talking about what are NGOs, some example of NGOs. The current affairs part will be what are the issues with the NGOs. You can talk about a couple of issues. You can then, next part you'll go to the solutions. What are the solutions government is taking or people have taken? Self-declaration, FCRA amendment. These are the things that come in the current affairs section. तो ऐसे ही integrate करके चलता है. So you might have heard the slogan सबका साथ सबका विकास, right? तो यही target करो आपके answers में सबका साथ सबका विकास. ठीक है. Even in questions where you find कि current affairs कुछ नहीं मिल रहा है, कुछ मत करो. Drop in the name of a government scheme. Food processing industry. You do not know what current affairs right now. You can say that the Sampada Yojana of the government of India has reaped dividends for food processing sector, and India is on the way of becoming the second or the third largest food processing industry produced in the world with this percent of global coverage. So that scheme, second, third largest, kitna percent coverage, this you get from current affairs. This is how you use. Samjha? Next question. Bro, I'll take your question. He has been raising a hand for some time now. Next, I'll come to you. Okay.
अगर सर किसी को फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में क्लियर करना है तो 1 साल में फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में क्लियर करना है तो क्या क्या स्टेप्स
सर थैंक यू फॉर आस्किंग बट मेरा 4th अटेम्प्ट में क्लियर हुआ है बट नहीं ठीक है भाई बट बिल्कुल आई गेट योर पॉइंट थैंक यू सो मच फॉर आस्किंग टारगेट यही करो फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में हो रहा है बट बी बोलते हैं डू गुड प्रिपेयर फॉर द वर्स्ट राइट टारगेट यही करो कि फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में क्लियर हो जाए यही करना है बेसिक चीज़ें अच्छे सॉल्व करनी है रिवाइज करनी है बेसिक फॉलो करनी है आंसर राइटिंग प्रैक्टिस करनी है यू हैव टू बी अवेयर एंड राइट एज एन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर थिंक एज एन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर यही बेसिक चीज़ है टॉपर्स की कॉपीज पढ़नी है बट एट द सेम टाइम फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में नहीं होता डू नॉट थिंक दिस इज द एंड ऑफ द वर्ल्ड मेंटली प्रिपेयर करो कि माइट नीड सम टाइम इन दिस फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में हो गया वेरी गुड बाद में हो गया वेरी गुड वो भी सही है क्या IAS बनना है ना यही चीज़ है कोई 22 में बनता है कोई 28 में बनता है मैं 27 में बनाऊँ पर बन रहा हूँ ना बस यही है अपने एंड से यही टारगेट करो कि फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में करना है नहीं हुआ डू नॉट लूज पेशेंस अगर हम लोग के 180 का बैच में IAS वाले लोग हैं फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में 3 या 4 होंगे मैक्सिमम 5 बहुत मैक्सिमम हुआ 8 बस उससे ज़्यादा नहीं नो सिंगल चांस ठीक है ना बी वेरी पेशेंट अबाउट इट बी वेरी पेशेंट अबाउट द प्रोसेस नॉट हरी बोलते ना एम फॉर द स्टार्स देन यू विल रीच द मून ऐसे करके बस वही और बीच में अगर मतलब कि मैं एम सही बैठ गया तो भाई अच्छी बात है पार्टी कर लेना हमें भी इनवाइट कर लेना पार्टी में अपने ठीक है नेक्स्ट बजे आप उसको तो पहले he has been asking waiting for some time
So did you face any situation based question in interview round like as you said DM of Western region did you face we all know that Mawadi area did you face any situation based question
yes, I did face situation-based questions. I remember there was this one question a leading member asked me that if you are made a DM of a district that is facing disasters, what would you do? So I mainly answered out a couple of points. First of all, I'd be setting up a committee to investigate the nature of disasters. Second, based on the reports of the committee, I would be bringing in different stakeholders, the police, the land revenue, disaster management team, everyone around. Third, creating awareness, sensitization, creating an adaptation and mitigation plan. Fourth, involving the local people in plan. Fifth, using government resources for these projects, and at the same time using local people's local solutions. For example, South Bihar में there is this. Is there anyone from South Bihar? या बिहार से कोई है यहाँ पे? कुछ लोग हैं होंगे बिहार से तो बिहार में बहुत फेमस मॉडल है आहार पानी मॉडल, जिस ऑफ वाटर कंजर्वेशन. इट्स अ वेरी लोकल मॉडल. It is very simple. कुछ एम्बैंकमेंट टाइप का बनाते हैं. It conserves water. If this is used, the disaster of drought in that region has dropped by around 35 to 40%. सही है ना local solution use करना है. Our honorable PM is talking about what? वो local for local. वो local आत्मनिर्भर. तो आत्मनिर्भर not only in technologies, आत्मनिर्भर also in solutions. These are the ways. This is what the 5 points I put in. I think it was a decent answer, right? Thank you. But next question. Anyone? बस हो गया मेरे बोलने में मुंह नहीं दर्द दे रहा है. हाँ बिल्कुल सर.
I just want to ask why did you switch your doing from IAS to IAS? Main reason?
Couple of reasons. One of the major reason was that because of that क्या बोलते हैं उसको वो जो experience with NSS था ही. So second was like कि IFS पढ़ रहा था because pol science से बहुत influence था. But then I remember having this conversation with my mother like कि if I get posted in some other countries, because I do not have any idea about how an IFS की posting happens. So my general assumption was कि an IFS will spend most of his career outside India. It may or may not be true. I do not know even to this day. So I asked my mom कि I'm very close to my mother. I asked her कि would you and Papa be willing to move with me to some other country? And they were like कि हमारा सब कुछ यहाँ पे है. Why would I want to leave everything? Like obviously you'll be going, but then it's about families. Like we are a very communitarian society. My parents were like कि नहीं. My mom was like कि नहीं. Probably not. I might come to visit you, but I will not probably move in to let's say Libya or let's say Scotland with you. So why do it hit me कि at the end of the day मैं किसके लिए कर रहा हूँ? अपने लिए तो कर रहा हूँ, but अपने parents के लिए तो कर रहा हूँ. And if I do not have them by my side to enjoy, तो क्या point है? So that's why I thought कि चलो IAS be something that I've always wanted. IFS is also something that I've always wanted. Let's focus more on IAS. This has been a major reason. But then वही NSS वाला incident that has always been a driving factor. ठीक है? बताइए, any more questions? क्या थक गए क्या तुम लोग? ये नींद नहीं आ रहा है क्या? Yes ma'am. Okay, बताइए, कोई बात नहीं.
Sir, it's my personal problem, like hobby. I like reading some detective books like Serivces या Prelims books, या फिर I like watching cartoons, series. So like this, but I don't have any hobby that कि डेप्थ पेपर में जाके आपको लिख दे और अगर इंटरव्यू से वो क्वेश्चन आएगा, I don't think I am able to question them. So it is quite that I am not.
This is a good hobby. This is a good hobby. Reading detective books.
But already
So you can expand on it. You can try exploring Sherlock Holmes. ठीक है ना?
I tried some.
ठीक है. You can read about some other novels as well. You can say that most. You can say that reading indigenous detective novels. You can frame it better. See it. हाँ तो बोल देना कि अभी तक मैंने ये पढ़ा है. I would want to explore more. I could not study them because of my commitments to this examination. But I have tried because Byomkesh, Bakshi and Fehuda are also large volumes, right? So I have tried to finish this first before moving on because I might lose this connect. But then once I'm done with this, I'll definitely go on. Probably I might even write a detective novel in the future. So it's about how you presenting. मैं क्या बता रहा हूँ? You do not say you don't have a good hobby. You have a very good hobby. Do you enjoy reading it now? That's your hobby. यही तो है. It's about presenting. Building सब कोई बना लेगा. So there's nothing is a small thing, my friend. Trust me on this. Do you know what my hobby was or is apart from football? Blogging. You know what blogging is? Blogging is running or jogging with picking up litter. It's also a very small thing. 2 या 3 लोग सुने होंगे क्लास में. फेलुदा और ब्योमकेश बक्सी कितने लोगों ने सुना है? You have your answer. ठीक है? There's nothing like a small thing. Trust me on this. Probably 2 or 3 years down the line, you'll understand. It's a very good hobby. Continue pursuing it, but not at the cost of your studies. And जब time आएगा टाइम भरने के लिए, frame it better. Reading indigenous detective novels. या reading Bengali detective novels. ठीक है? नहीं तो वो मत करिए. सेल्फ कंट्रोल. ठीक है ना? आपको मान लो लेट से आप IAS ऑफिसर बन गए, तो आप विल यू वर्क ओनली इन द हेल्थ केयर सेक्टर? नहीं ना? एंड यू माइट एंजॉय वर्किंग इन द हेल्थ केयर सेक्टर. यू माइट एंजॉय विजिटिंग, डेली विजिट कर रहे हो इस हॉस्पिटल का, इस डॉक्टर को डांट लगा रहे हो. बट बाकी चीजें भी तो है. रेवेन्यू एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन भी तो है. डिस्ट्रिक्ट संभालना है, वो भी तो करना है ना. सेल्फ कंट्रोल. यू गाइस आर वेरी लाइक किड्स. ग्रेजुअली आएगा. डू नॉट वरी. बी पेशेंट. गुड थिंग्स विल कम. डोंट वरी. ओके? But any more questions? Yes, sir.
How to give quality 7 to 8 hours each day?
Phone फेंक दो. Laptop का internet disconnect कर लो. Give yourself targets that you will fulfill. That will take you 7 or 8 hours a day. Try start with 4. Start with 3. Gradually 4 करो. फिर 5 करो. फिर 6 करो. Remove the distractions and reward yourself when you are done with the target. Let's say तुमने 6 घंटा पढ़ लिया दिन भर में. रात 9 बजे जाओ तो कचौड़ी खा के आ जाओ. I used to do this. Like I'm crazy about this कचौड़ी and छोला डाल. कोई छोटा 5 का कोई पाई ना, वही काला पत्ता डालना, डिवीटर दिए. Like I'm crazy about that. And I used to do this very much. अब दिल्ली में मिलता नहीं कचौड़ी. वहाँ पे जब खाने लगे they'll give you पूरी सब्जी 10 rupees per piece. Scam है. Scam 2022. ठीक है. So I used to do this. Kochudi was a very big motivator. Video games was a very big motivator for me. Or a reward mechanism. So use this mechanism. ठीक है? Next question, please. Yes, ma'am.
So optional subject कैसे choose करें?
Okay. So optional choose करने का some golden rules. Number 1, never be sentimental. And this is coming from the horse's mouth. I was sentimental in choosing chemistry. I was like, chemistry में तो मैं बहुत अच्छा हूँ. Chemistry में जा रहा हूँ बच्चों को JEE के लिए पढ़ाने, और तो मैं सबको पढ़ा दूँगा chemistry. And फिर chemistry का पेपर आया. I was like, वो बच्चा है ना मीम में, मुझे माफ करो मेरी ज़बान फिसल गई, भारी मिस्टेक हो गई. That happened. So do not be sentimental. You might like a subject, but it's not necessary that the subject is for you. So research करो. What are the parameters of research? Number 1, your interest. If that subject interests you or not. For example, someone went for anthro वाला. तुम थे ना? Anthro में उन्होंने choose किया because it might be interesting. Interest is a factor. Second, availability of resources. Chemistry interested me, but not enough resources were available. So I had to falter. Third, available of good quality guidance. It is necessary that guidance be अच्छा हो, especially for technical optionals. Mathematics. आपको लग रहा है मैथमेटिक्स खुद कर पाओगे? वेल एंड गुड भाई, बिल्कुल कर लो. हाल पसीने छूट जाएंगे. लिटरली इतना पसीना छूटेगा, वाटर वेट बॉडी का लूज हो जाएगा. I'll come to this after something. ठीक है. Availability of resources, availability of guidance, easeability. Easeability does not means how it is performing in the exams. वो सबसे बड़ा scam है. UPSC treats all options equally. UPSC hates optionals. आजकल का यही ट्रेंड है कि UPSC इस खड्डे के लोग पहले 300 350 जाता था, अब रेयरली 300 जा रहा है. I scored 255 and I've become an IAS in my pol science. तो अभी 250 से लेके 270 के रेंज में आने लग गया है. They might push it down a little bit. So do not go for this fake news या बोलते हैं ना herd mentality कि एंथ्रो का स्कोर अच्छा आ रहा है, एंथ्रो लेते हैं. इस वजह से एंथ्रो बूचर हुआ है. 2 साल पहले was sociology. No, I'm not discouraging you. There are people who have scored above 300 in anthro as well. I know a person. Same for like sociology. 2 साल पहले sociology चल रहा था. इस साल sociology बूचर हुआ है. But then there are people who have scored again good. Point being, do not follow herd mentality. And graduation subject को optional लेना. ले सकते हो provided there's इन चारों पैरामीटर को वो टिक मार्क हो रहा है. मेरा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंजीनियरिंग था. मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंजीनियरिंग इज नॉट इवन एन ऑप्शनल. आई कुड हैव गॉन फॉर मैकेनिकल, बट देन आई वाज नॉट इवन इंटरेस्टेड. मेरा फर्स्ट चेक होता है ना, वही फेल कर गया. केमिस्ट्री आई वाज इंटरेस्टेड, बट adequate resource or guidance wasn't available. This should have been a red flag for me, but it did not. It costed me my 2 attempts. So it's my sincere request, prayer, petition, जो भी बोलो, do not waste your precious attempts. मत वेस्ट करो, बहुत कीमती है. जब 4 साल के बाद आप आते हो और आपको लग रहा है कि अब क्या हुआ, मेरा पसीना छूटने लगेगा ना. लकीली हो गया इस बार नहीं होता. I do not know what would I have done. Do not waste your attempts because of a bad optional. Sometimes when you start an optional, 2-3 मिनट के अंदर आपको आइडिया लग जाएगा which way you are going. And it's not necessary that जो आपने ग्रेजुएशन में लिया है that be your same option. ये ego test नहीं है. This is not an ego test. Someone might have economics as his graduation subject, but you might be very open, very interested, and very much adaptable to political science. Resources मिल रहे, guidance भी मिल रहा है. Go for political science if you think so. Do not ऐसी मत करो कि ग्रेजुएशन का सब्जेक्ट क्लियर लेंगे तो भाई ग्रेजुएशन भी क्लियर हो जाएगा, ये भी क्लियर है. नहीं, those are very two different examinations, marked by very two different patterns and judged upon a very two different frame of questions. ठीक है ना? तो होता है ना कि आपको like if you guys have studied science in some point of your life, you can never say 1 mile is equal to 1 kilometer. Can you say? Because they're two very different units. यही समझना है आपको when you're choosing an option. ठीक है? If you think you're good with the graduation optional and वो चारों पैरामीटर में टिक कर रहा है, go for it. If not, red flags. ठीक है? Any more questions? या फिर आज के लिए बस खत्म किया जाए? कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है तो on a parting note I would say हाँ क्वेश्चन है.
पढ़ना स्टार्ट करते हैं तो आपको ऐसा नहीं लगता है कि एक सब्जेक्ट लेके बैठे तो वो भी बाकी है, वो भी बाकी है, वो भी बाकी है, वो छूट जाएगा.
बाकी तो सब है, बाकी तो सब रहेगा भाई. मुझे आज पूछो कि मैंने 8 क्लास से आज तक पढ़ा भी नहीं था. डू नॉट डू दिस मिस्टेक अगेन. मुझे 8 क्लास से बहुत बोरिंग लगता था. बाकी तो सब है. मैं तुम्हें फाइनल इंटरव्यू में बोल के कि मेरा ये बाकी वो बाकी है. मेरा प्री क्लियर हो गया. मेरे मेंस में लिटरली मेरा पेपर 2 बाकी था ऑप्शनल. वो तो लिटरली मैंने गाइडेंस एंड स्लैश टू से हो गया तो मैं बच गया. मेरा बाकी का फीलिंग हमेशा आएगा, बट आपको ये खुद को समझाना है कि एक्चुअली में बाकी है, बस वो फीलिंग वाली आ रही है बाकी वाली. ठीक है ना? क्वेश्चन देखोगे तो लगेगा कि किस टाइप का क्वेश्चन आने लगा. ये तो भी पढ़ा ही नहीं है मैंने, तो एक और बुक पढ़ लेते. नहीं, जो पढ़ा है उसको यूज करो. यूज दैट नॉलेज टू एलिमिनेट ऑप्शंस. बता रहा हूँ तब से डॉक्यूमेंट के बोलची एलिमिनेट ऑप्शंस, यूज दैट. ठीक है? बाकी वाले फिर यही आर तो पूरी नहीं. एनीथिंग एवरीथिंग आउट ऑफ द सन इज इन सिलेबस. व्हाट विल यू डू? You cannot rely on everything on the sun, right? The best way is to cover as much as you can and then trust your instincts, trust your abilities. ठीक है? Your work as an administrator is not found in any book. That will come from experience of what? जैसे देखते हो कि पहला दिन क्या डीएम बनाएंगे हम लोग को. गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया बोले कि मारेंगे तुमको, भागो यहाँ से. पहला दिन हम लोग ट्रेनिंग दिया था. 2 साल का ट्रेनिंग चलता है, अलग अलग जगह घुमाया जाता है. ताकि we understand, we learn from experiences. तब शायद कुछ SDO टाइप कुछ देता है, फिर SDM होते हैं। ग्रेजुअली करते करते जब हमें पास एडिक्वेट एक्सपीरियंस ये सब हो जाता है, वी गो टू DM, फिर कलेक्टर करके जब ग्राउंड का लेवल एक्सपीरियंस हो गया, वी आर सेंट टू मिनिस्ट्रीज, हाई पोस्ट, ताकि जो हमने ग्राउंड में सीखा है यूज दिस। फर्स्ट डे ऐसा नहीं होता कि फर्स्ट डे मेरे को बोला कि सर कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरी बना दो 43 रैंक का है, क्या करोगे सर, भाई को नहीं बनाओगे? नो, वी नेवर डू दिस। एक्सपीरियंस मैटर्स। हमेशा फीलिंग आएगी दिस इज मिसिंग, दैट इज मिसिंग, दिस इज वेरी नेचुरल, मुझे आज भी होती है। लकीली अब देना नहीं पड़ेगा, आई एम डिस्क्वालिफाइड फ्रॉम दिस प्रोसेस, लकीली आई एम इनएलिजिबल फॉर दिस एग्जामिनेशन। You know this now, IAS and IFS are not eligible to write this examination again. They have to resign and then write. So this is something, ये feeling हमेशा आएगी, तो you have to check whether it is actually कुछ miss हो रहा है, और actually miss हो रहा है तो yes, work on it. अगर नहीं कि बस और चाहिए, do not succumb to it. ठीक है? Any more questions? तो should we conclude this session?
Yes, sir, yes.
So on a conclusion वाले note पे, I would actually take 2 more minutes of your very precious time, your shingara and chai time. That the biggest thing, you know what is the biggest thing that is required in this examination? बता सकते हैं कोई? क्योंकि ये बोलते पारवे? Patience, good. Hard work, consistency, persistence, perseverance. Very good. These are all very good things. The basic thing that is required is belief. Have this faith on you yourself. Have faith on your gods. Have faith on your parents, your teachers. जहाँ पे भी पढ़ रहे हो, there are people outside who will be watching us. Wherever you are, have faith. ठीक है? वो एक बहुत famous quote है. I remember using this in one of my essays. Faith is the bird that sings when the sun hasn't risen at dawn. ठीक है, देखते नहीं हो कि डॉन होने के पहले बर्ड सिंग करने लगते, बिकॉज उसको पता है, उसको फेथ है कि सन निकलेगा। सन निकला नहीं है बट निकलेगा। हैव दिस फेथ इन योरसेल्फ। फेथ रहेगा, बिलीफ रहेगा, परसिवियर करोगे, सब कुछ थिंग्स विल फॉल इनटू प्लेस। फॉर सम फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट, फॉर सम फोर्थ अटेम्प्ट, फॉर सम 7th 8th अटेम्प्ट, बट थिंग्स आएगा। बी पेशेंट, दिस इज व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू डू। अपने ऊपर भरोसा रखो, टेक गुड केयर ऑफ योर फिजिकल एंड मेंटल हेल्थ। कुछ हॉबीज एक्टिविटीज टाइप का रखो व्हिच डज नॉट डिस्टर्ब योर स्टडी, ठीक है ना? And most importantly, enjoy the process, because life does not get easier after this, you get tough. And this is a quote that has been told to me by a senior, a college senior who is currently in the services. Life does not get easy, you get tough. So with this, thank you so very much for being so patient and active listeners, and thank you so very much for having me here. I wish all of you best of luck, and hopefully we'll meet soon if possible. ठीक है? तब तक के लिए जय हिंद। Thank you.